Mom, why did everyone in this village hate me?
Oh, my child. It's not your fault.
Listen. Come closer. Let me tell you a story about a girl. A girl who everyone hates in her village. Because of her hair difference. How that same girl sacrificed something great just to save the villagers. Before the story begins, please subscribe to this channel, because this story might change how you see people forever. The rain poured harder than anyone in the village had ever seen. Water ran down the streets like rivers, and the wind howled through the trees. That night, in the small, quiet house by the river, a woman screamed in pain. Years of waiting, of being laughed at and mocked for not having a child, were coming to an end. Her neighbors had whispered terrible words about her for years. She is cursed. She cannot have a baby, they said. What a shame for the family. Tonight, all of that would change, or so it seemed. The mother's body ached with every wave of pain, but her heart was filled with hope. Her husband held her hand, whispering words of encouragement, though worry shone in his eyes. "You are strong," he said softly. "Our child is coming tonight, and she will be beautiful." Outside, the wind slammed against the walls, and the rain made the roof creak. It was as if the heavens themselves were watching, waiting for this special moment. The midwife, an old woman with wise eyes, murmured prayers under her breath, ready to help the child into the world. Finally, the baby was born, and a strange silence filled the house. The midwife gasped and covered her mouth. "Look at her hair," she whispered. It was white, shining like fresh snow even in the candlelight. The mother wept, tears of relief and joy streaming down her cheeks. She held her tiny daughter close, feeling a warmth she had never imagined, a love deeper than the river beside them. The father leaned over, amazed, whispering, "She is perfect, more beautiful than I ever dreamed." The baby's hair seemed to glow softly, reflecting the flickering candlelight, as if the rain outside had blessed her with a secret magic. By morning, the news had spread like wildfire. The villagers came, some curious, some suspicious, all whispering and pointing at the small house. "Why is the baby's hair white?" they murmured. "It's unnatural, it is not normal." The other mothers frowned, glaring at the tiny infant. Even the girls in the village stared with jealousy and fear. No one said anything aloud, but their looks carried hatred before the baby could even speak. The mother tried to protect her daughter, wrapping her gently in a blanket, but she could feel the eyes of the village burning into them, full of judgment and fear. The baby was named Amora, which means blessing, though the villagers could not see it yet. She slept quietly in her mother's arms, unaware of the whispers and the cold stares around her. But even as the villagers' fear and jealousy grew, something strange happened. The river nearby glimmered under the sunlight, reflecting the baby's hair as if it recognized her. A small breeze brushed through the window, carrying the scent of rain and something else, something gentle, protective, almost like a promise. And in that moment, the mother knew, deep in her heart, that Amora was special. She was not cursed, as the villagers believed. She was a gift from above. From that day on, the villagers watched her with suspicion, the other children whispered and avoided her, and her mother held her closer than ever. Amora's hair shone like a secret no one could understand, a symbol of something greater than anyone in the village could imagine. And though no one knew it yet, the shining white hair of Amora would one day save them all. Every morning, Amora woke up to the cold whispers of the villagers. "Look at her hair. She is cursed. Stay away from that girl." Even the other children avoided her, sneering when she tried to speak. Sometimes, they threw stones near her feet or pushed her into the mud. She tried to play, to laugh, to be like the other children, but they ran away from her every time. The loneliness clung to her like the heavy rain that fell on the village in the evenings, and sometimes Amora would cry silently, wishing someone, anyone, would see the goodness in her heart. Her mother held her tightly when she came home. "Amora," she said softly, "remember, God has a reason for everything. You are special. One day, he will show everyone why. But even with her mother's gentle words, Amora felt small and heavy with sorrow. She often wandered alone to the river, sitting on a rock with her tiny hands in her lap. The water flowed calmly past her, shining in the sun, reflecting the pale glow of her hair. The river did not mock her. It did not laugh. Somehow, it seemed to understand her sadness. Amora began to speak to the river like it was her only friend. "Why am I different?" she whispered one morning. "Why do they hate me?" Sometimes she sang softly, her voice trembling but clear, carrying her pain and hope into the wind. Birds would stop to listen, the water would shimmer brighter, and for a moment, it felt like someone, or something, was listening. She did not know yet that the river had a secret connection with her, that it would one day answer her in ways the villagers could never imagine. Years passed, and Amara grew taller, but the hatred never faded. Every day brought new whispers, new warnings, and new acts of cruelty. The women of the village warned their daughters to stay far from her. "Do not touch her," they said. "She is not like us. She is dangerous." The girls who had once played together now laughed at her hair, calling it strange and ugly. And yet, despite the stones, the pushes, the whispers, and the laughter, Amora never became bitter. She found a quiet strength inside her, a small flame that would not be snuffed out. She began to sense that her hair was more than just strange, it was a gift, though she did not yet understand how or why. And so, day after day, Amora grew up hating no one, but feeling hated by all. She found solace only in the river, where the sunlight danced on the water, and her hair reflected like snow in the morning. Though the village treated her with suspicion and fear, she kept hope alive in her heart. One day, she felt everything would change. And the same hair that made everyone despise her would show the true miracle of her life. Amora's life in the village grew harder with every passing day. The other girls laughed at her white hair, pointing and whispering behind her back. Sometimes they chased her through the muddy streets, tugging at her hair and throwing small stones near her feet. Even when she tried to run or hide, their laughter followed her, echoing in her ears long after they had gone. She would kneel in the dirt and cry quietly, her small shoulders shaking, wishing she could disappear so that no one would hate her anymore. The women of the village were even harsher. They warned their children every morning not to go near Amora. "Do not touch her," they said sharply. "She is different. She is cursed." Mothers pulled their daughters away if they even glanced at her. Sometimes they whispered about her in the marketplace, shaking their heads. "A child like that brings misfortune," they said. "Stay away from her." Amora often overheard these words, and they stung her heart like sharp thorns. She began to feel invisible, not part of the world she was born into. One afternoon, a group of girls caught Amora by the mango tree near the river. They pushed her to the ground, scratching her arms and pulling at her hair. "Your hair is ugly," they screamed. "You don't belong here." Amora curled up on the wet ground, tears streaming down her cheeks, mixing with the rain that had started to fall again. Her mother rushed to protect her, but the other women of the village stopped her, shaking their heads. "Let her learn," one said. "She will never belong." That day, Amora felt hatred not just from the children, but from every adult around her. She began to question why she had been born at all. Yet even in the middle of her pain, Amora found comfort in the river. She would sit quietly on a large rock, watching the water flow, listening to the soft whispers it seemed to carry. She talked to the river when no one else would listen. "Why do they hate me?" she asked softly. And though the villagers could not hear it, the river shimmered and moved gently in response, as if it understood her sorrow. In that lonely place, Amora felt a spark of hope. Deep inside her heart, she began to understand that one day, the river and her hair would show the villagers the truth, that she was not cursed, but a blessing they had failed to see. Amora felt lonelier than ever that day. Every corner of the village seemed to carry whispers about her hair, her face, and her very being. Children avoided her, women warned their daughters to stay far from her, and even the elders looked at her with suspicion. The words seemed heavy, and she wanted to shout, to fight, or to make everyone understand, but her mother's words echoed in her mind, Amora, never fight back. God has a reason for everything. One day, He will show you why you are special. So Amora listened and held back her anger, though her heart ached. She wandered alone to the river again, her small feet slipping in the soft mud, her tears mixing with the rain. The water glimmered gently under the grey clouds, and the river seemed to welcome her. It was the only place where she felt safe, where no one shouted or pointed. She sat on a flat stone, hugging her knees, and whispered to the river, I wish someone would like me. I wish I was not so alone. The river rippled softly, as if it were listening, its surface reflecting the pale shine of her white hair. That afternoon, Amara began to sing. Her voice was soft at first, trembling with sadness and longing. She sang of her loneliness, of the cruelty she faced, and of the strange warmth she felt in her heart that no one else could see. The birds stopped to listen, the wind seemed to carry her words across the trees, and the river shimmered and swirled in time with her song. She sang louder, pouring all her sorrow, hope, and prayers into each note. For a while, she forgot the hatred of the village. For a moment, the river became her audience, her friend, and her comfort. Hours passed, and the rain slowed to a gentle drizzle. Amora's throat was sore, her voice weak, but her heart felt lighter. Though the village still hated her, though the children still whispered and avoided her, she discovered a quiet strength within herself. She realized that her sorrow could be transformed into something powerful, something unseen by the villagers. Little did she know, the river was learning her song, remembering it, and waiting for the day when her voice, her hair, and her heart would save the village from a danger they could not even imagine. That day, alone by the river, Amora felt the first spark of her destiny. The next morning, the village awoke to a terrifying sight. The river, the same river that had always flowed calmly beside their homes, had begun to rise faster than anyone could understand. The water was dark and restless, moving angrily over the banks, flooding the fields, and threatening to destroy the crops. Fish leapt from the water, flapping desperately, and the villagers ran to the edge, shouting and panicking. Mothers clutched their children tightly, and men shouted instructions, but no one knew how to stop the river. Fear spread like wildfire. The elders called for prayers, offerings, and charms, but nothing worked. They stamped their feet, waved their hands, and chanted over and over, hoping to calm the water, yet the river only grew stronger, wilder, and more frightening. Even the chief priest, who had always understood the ways of the river, stood silent and pale, staring at the red-streaked current. I cannot explain this, he muttered under his breath, his usual confidence gone. The villagers whispered among themselves in fear. This is a curse. Someone must have done this. The gods are angry with us. But no one had any answers. Amora, however, did not run. She felt drawn to the river in a way no one else could understand. Her white hair glimmered faintly in the sunlight, and she walked carefully to the edge, kneeling on the muddy bank. She whispered softly to the water, Please, do not hurt them. Please save them. Her voice trembled, but she felt warmth spreading from her hair into the river, a strange and gentle power she could not yet explain. She knew she was connected to it, and deep down, she understood that the river was listening to her alone. The villagers watched from a distance, their fear turning into confusion. No prayers, charms, or offerings worked. The river calmed slightly, only to rise again. Every attempt to stop it failed. And though many whispered in anger, accusing someone of wrongdoing, no one suspected the girl with the shining hair. They did not realize that Amora, the child they had hated and mocked for years, carried the secret to saving them. And as she knelt there, softly crying and praying, a tiny flicker of hope rose in her heart. One day, she knew, her gift would show them the truth, and they would finally understand that she was not cursed, but blessed. If this story is touching your heart right now, please subscribe and support the channel. More powerful stories are coming. The next morning, the village woke to a sight that froze everyone in fear. The river, their lifeline, had turned deep red, like blood spilling across the land. Mothers screamed, children clung to their parents, and men ran to the riverbank, unsure whether to fight or flee. The water roared angrily, flooding small parts of the fields and carrying away debris. It was as if the river itself had turned against them, and panic spread through the village like wildfire. The villagers tried everything they knew. The elders burned incense, chanted long prayers, and poured offerings into the raging water. Some beat drums and shouted to the river, calling for it to come, while others threw herbs and charms in, hoping to reverse the red flow. But nothing worked. The river remained furious, and with every passing minute, the villagers' fear grew. Even the chief priest, who had always been confident and wise, stood at the edge, speechless, eyes wide, muttering, This is beyond anything I have ever seen. Nothing can stop it." Amora watched quietly from behind a large tree near the riverbank. Her small heart ached at the sight of her home in panic. The villagers shouted and argued, blaming each other, yet none suspected the secret she carried. No one knew that her hair, white and shining in the morning sun, was the key to calming the river. Her mother stood near her, hand on her shoulder, whispering softly, "God has given you a gift, Amara. You must trust him, and trust yourself." Amara nodded, though her fear and sorrow were heavy. She did not yet understand how, but she knew she had to wait for the right moment. Hours passed. The river remained red, untamed and frightening, while the villagers grew desperate. Mothers cried openly, begging for their homes to be saved. Men shouted in panic, trying to build small dams or carry buckets of water away, but nothing worked. The elders scratched their heads, frustrated and frightened. The chief priest folded his hands and stared silently at the river, unable to explain the impossible. Even after every attempt, the red water refused to change. And all the while, Amora sat quietly, kneeling on the muddy bank, watching, praying, and feeling the river respond to her presence. Only she knew the secret no one else could see: she was the one meant to save them all. That night, after another long day of fear and confusion, Amora went home feeling heavier than ever. Her tiny feet dragged through the muddy streets, her heart aching at the memory of the villagers' panic. Why did no one understand her? Why did they fear what they could not see? She sat on her bed, hugging her knees, and whispered into the darkness, "Why am I different? Why must they hate me?" Her mother came and wrapped her in a warm embrace. "Amora, my child," she said softly, "God has a reason for everything. One day, you will see why you are special." Amora fell asleep that night with her mother's words echoing in her mind, and in her dreams, she saw a vision unlike anything before. She was standing at the edge of the Red River, the water wild and terrifying. Villagers ran in panic, their faces filled with fear. The sky was dark, the wind howled, and everything seemed hopeless. But then, Amora lifted her shining white hair, and light began to flow from it into the river. Slowly, the water calmed, turning clear and sparkling once more. She watched as the villagers' faces changed, fear transformed into awe and relief. Her heart swelled with warmth, and she knew this was what she had been born to do. The next morning, Amora ran to her mother, tears shining in her eyes. "Mama, I saw it. I know how to save the village. I can stop the river from hurting everyone," she cried. Her mother's eyes widened, a mixture of worry and hope filling her gaze. "Amora, are you sure?" she asked gently. But Amora nodded, determination burning inside her. Together, they went to the chief priest, whose face was still pale from yesterday's crisis. "Please, you must help me," Amora said, her voice trembling but strong. I saw a dream. I know what can save the village. The chief priest listened carefully, consulting with the elders for hours, murmuring prayers under his breath. Finally, he nodded slowly. He called for the villagers to gather at the river, the air thick with fear, curiosity, and doubt. Mothers held their children close, men whispered nervously, and the elders exchanged worried glances. This child may hold the answer we have been searching for, the chief priest announced, his voice calm but serious. Amora stepped forward, her shining hair catching the sunlight, her heart pounding. The villagers stared, some in disbelief, some in fear, some in hope, as the girl they had hated all her life prepared to face the river, their only chance to survive. The villagers gathered at the riverbank, their faces pale with fear, doubt, and curiosity. Mothers clutched their children tightly, men whispered to each other nervously, and the elders watched silently, unsure of what to expect. The chief priest stood tall, his eyes fixed on Amora. For years, they had mocked her, feared her, and ignored her. Yet now, all hope rested on the girl they had rejected, the girl with the shining white hair. Amora took a deep breath and stepped forward, her small hands trembling slightly. She held her hair in front of her, letting it flow like a glowing waterfall in the sunlight. The strands shimmered brighter than ever, catching the eyes of every villager. Some gasped, others shook their heads in disbelief. Could this strange, hated girl really hold the key to saving them? The red river roared angrily before them, splashing over its banks, threatening homes, fields, and animals. Panic had filled the air, but Amora felt a strange calm inside her. Kneeling at the edge of the river, Amora let her hair touch the water. A gentle warmth spread from her hair into the river, and slowly, inch by inch, the red water began to calm. The wild current softened, the waves grew smaller, and the river shimmered clear and pure under the morning sun. The villagers froze, their mouths open in awe and fear. Mothers whispered prayers of thanks, men dropped their tools, and even the chief priest fell to his knees in silent amazement. The girl they had hated, feared, and ignored had become their miracle. As the last waves of red disappeared, Amora's hair began to change. The shining white strands slowly turned black, soft and smooth like the night sky. No longer a symbol of fear or jealousy, her hair now carried the quiet strength and courage of the child who had saved them all. The villagers stood in silence, ashamed of the years they had mocked her, yet grateful for the life she had preserved. Amora's mother stepped forward, tears of pride streaming down her face, and hugged her daughter tightly. Amara smiled softly, her heart full, knowing that her gift from above had fulfilled its purpose. That day, the village learned a lesson they would never forget: the most hated, the most different, and the most misunderstood could be the greatest blessing of all. If you believe Amora's story teaches us never to judge others, subscribe, like, and share this video with someone today.